Ooh, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Darku and I'm here with another guide that I believe that you are looking for, which is the English version of how to defeat the Heatran Raid fight, the 6 stars over in Sinnoh. Here you go, here is my Heatran as proof that we have indeed defeated it and caught the Heatran. As you can see, we did this today at 1:40 AM. We don't talk about that. But anyway, play the intro. Alright, so before we get moving on with many things, I just want to say this is loosely adapted from the Chinese method. Obviously, that looked like it was recorded from a potato, but we're not here to judge. It basically used almost the same team, and then obviously there's some people like Cav out there who have made a written guide for some English readers as well, which use some Pokemon, so we're loosely basing it on that as well. I'm obviously going to show you the entire team, all of the items, IVs, EVs, and moves. I just wanted to give that little bit of credit in there. This was not fully cooked up by anybody in the Pookies this time. This was actually just outsourced. Alright, so before we go into any of the teams that we used, of course, I want to tell you a little bit more about this Heatran Raid and how it works. So of course the location is at Stark Mountain. It's actually at the very back of Stark Mountain, but to even unlock this raid you need to complete the entire Pokédex OT. That's like 605 Pokemon I believe in PokeMMO that you need to catch with your OT. You cannot just buy them off the GTL or cheat your way there. You need to literally go out there and finish your Pokédex to even unlock this, because you need to unlock Mount Silver the same way as unlocking this Heatran Raid. Once you've done that, obviously doing all of your OTs and stuff, you can go to Sinnoh, as long as you completed Sinnoh of course, and go to like the Fight Islands, etc, and then Stark Mountain is at the very top. We'll obviously show you exactly whereabouts it is in the mountain as well, a little bit later in this video. Let's go over some of the mechanics that Heatran has during this raid fight so that you're ready for it. So for example, its ability is Flash Fire, so you cannot hit it with a fire type move or it'll power it up and it won't take any damage. Its held item is Leftovers, so after each turn it will obviously get a percentage of its HP back. So when you start the raid at 100% HP, it has these Magma pools, basically a star version as well. What this means is a Magma pool is an entry hazard which burns everything and does 25% damage. It procs at the end of every turn as well. At 80% HP, it'll start throwing Stealth Rocks at you, and there are a special kind of Stealth Rocks as well. What this means is they are normal Stealth Rocks, however, they will do a slight bit of damage at the end of your turn as well. At 67% HP, it will use an automatic roar, so if you hit it to this threshold, it will then roar at your team, it will throw your team backwards and throw a random Pokemon out into the field. At 50% HP, it will have Iron Defense Auto Proc as well, so it will get a +2 defense. At 40% HP, it will get Adaption. Now Adaption makes the boss resistant to whatever type has been hit by the most. So if you've been hitting it with the water type the entire time, it will resist water at some point. At 25% HP then, it will throw up a really powerful barrier, and you need to try and break through this barrier or do something about it, obviously, otherwise you're going to do little to no damage. Its moves that it can use are Solar Beam, Earth Power, Magma Swarm, a star version, and a Power Gem. The maximum amount of damage that you can do per turn is 4% of its HP. So there you go, now you know the mechanics of how Heatran works. Now we're going to be going over the teams that we used, and then we'll show you the strats that we used for them. So for instance, let me just bring up my team for you now. We've got a Sneasel, or you can use a Weavile. We've got a Heracross, which is a vital part of the team. We've got a Politoed, which has a Drizzle, which is a really good vital part of the team as well. We've got a Flygon, a Kingdra, and my alpha, Suicune. Now Suicune is optional, obviously there's other Pokemon that can take this place. You also don't need an alpha one, I just had it obviously by doing the other alpha raid, so we brought it with us. Now the reason why I brought a Sneasel with me is because you just need a really fast Pokemon that is really good and has the move of Thief, so that you can steal the leftovers from the Heatran so that it doesn't get the leftovers proc every turn. The reason why you can't trick Poison Orbit or something like that is because Heatran is a steel type and is immune to poison. So what you want to do obviously is just send out a Sneasel or a Weavile or any other Pokemon that you think is good enough. This is just, like I said, this is a guideline when it comes to guides. They are literally guidelines, you don't have to copy it bit by bit, but we've got ourselves this really good Sneasel here. You can see this is my pre-built Sneasel for basically thieving or pickpocketing items off of Horde Pokemon, etc. We've got this really fast Sneasel with Thief, and its literal job is to steal the leftovers from the Heatran and basically die the same turn, no problemo. This Heracross then is obviously built pure damage, as you can see, just like this, and basically turn 2, everybody's going to send out their Heracross and they're going to just use close combat. It has guts as well, because obviously when you get burnt, you would normally take less physical, or sorry, you normally deal less physical damage, but with guts you're going to be doing way more. Next up on my team specifically, once again we're going to be going over my entire team, should I say, but this is my team that I brought. So next up I brought a timid Politoed with me to make sure that it had a certain amount of speed. It's got 254. Now it is also worth noting that I haven't said at the start that the Heatrans Raid boss fight is 253 speed. So if you're just above 253, like 254 for example, you will move before Heatran. So as you can see, this is a semi-comp Politoed, nothing too crazy about it. It has the moves of Earth Power, Water Sport, Captivate and Weather Ball, which are all very vital here, with the ability of Drizzle. Next up we have a Flygon with Modest. We've got a special attack Flygon, obviously basically a semi-comp build as well, nothing too crazy, and the main thing we're going to be using from this is just Earth Power. We've also got a Modest Kingdra going special attack Kingdra as well, and obviously basically a semi-comp, nothing too crazy over here, using basically the moves of Brine, Weather Ball, Hydro Pump, and we never even use Dragon Rage. And Sniper obviously is really good too. The last but not least, obviously I used my Suicune, which is actually a tanky Suicune. It doesn't matter too much on this one. We made sure we got special attack and some good speed. And obviously the IVs don't really matter, you can just put them on. And we used Brine, Rain Dance, and we had Hydro Pump as well. We'd never used Surf, but obviously those are all good moves. Now Sneasel, obviously for me, because I'm thiefing the item, doesn't have an item at all, so that we can make sure that we thief the item off of the Heatran. Our Heracross is using Black Belt, which obviously increases the fighting type moves by 20%. Our Politoed is using Water Gem, which powers up by 50% of a water move. Our Flygon's got choice specs, so 50% of special attack, but you can only use one move, which is fine. That was Earth Power. And our Kingdra has Assault Gear, which gives us our special defense by 50%, so it becomes a real tank. Last but not least then we have Suicune, who is using Expert Belt, and if you're using super effective moves, you get a bonus of 20%. So that was the team that I was using during this raid. Once again, the Sneasel was just using Thief and dying, the Heracross was just using Close Combat and dying, the Politoed, when nailed down, pretty much you can use anything on that list. Obviously if things go differently in the raid, you can use different moves, etc. The only true RNG about this raid is when it uses Roar, and then you've got to basically think on your feet of how you can set up for your team, because after Roar you basically want to make sure that you've got Rain set up, you want to basically captivate the enemy so it has less special attack, less special defense, because you're going to be using like fake tiers, all that kind of business. But the first few steps with the first 3 Pokemon usually stay the same for the entire team of everyone's team. Later on you use moves like Defog from like a Rotom for example, which will give evasiveness down on Heatran. So when you've got basically evasiveness -2, you can use something like Hydro Pump from this Kingdra, which is a really strong move, and the accuracy doesn't really matter because you will hit it because its evasiveness is down. But obviously it will clear its evasiveness later on, but you're near about 50% HP when that happens, so that's when you can start using Brine. So obviously when an enemy Pokemon's HP is below 50% and you use Brine, you get double the power. If for some reason something else goes wrong as well, Weather Ball is obviously a nice addition just in case. For my Suicune I used Brine, Hydro Pump, and made sure I had Rain Dance just to make sure that Rain was definitely up. Brine, obviously if it's less than 50% HP on the Heatran, we can hit it with Brine, and Hydro Pump if we get it out early because of the Roar, and it's got the -2 evasiveness. So I hope that explains that well enough. Now I'm going to be showing you the rest of my teams, and then we'll show you the full raid fight on how it all worked. So the first person I'm going to bring up is Pingomon, who brought Infernape, Kingdra, Heracross, Medicham, Hydreigon, and a Politoed. Now all 3 of my teammates actually brought a Medicham as well, instead of obviously like my Sneasel, because I'm the only one that's thieving the leftovers. The rest of them are all going to use a Medicham, fully built for damage, that's physical damage, and they all use Close Combat on turn 1. So the Medicham and the Heracross are pretty much the same across the board. Like I said, my 3 teammates have Medicham who all spam Close Combat. Turn 2, all 4 of us use Heracross and spam Close Combat as well. When it came to turn 3 though, I'm pretty sure Pingo used Infernape Close Combat to do as much damage as possible, alongside my Politoed using something like Weather Ball if it was raining, to actually get the Heatran in the threshold of using Roar. Later on, Pingo would use something like Hydreigon, which would use Earth Power, obviously instead of something like Flygon. Another teammate of mine obviously was Hjortsson, who brought a Hydreigon with the Modest Nature. Obviously it was going to use Earth Power just like my Flygon. He brought a Medicham, obviously we all have Medicham, we all had the Heracross, and he also had the Politoed, Kingdra and a Rotom. Now the Rotom here is obviously the difference. His Rotom had Light Screen, Hydro Pump, Defog and Discharge. Now obviously you're going to see that in play a little bit later. His Rotom had Light Clay as an item held as well, so that if you put a screen up it would last 8 turns instead of 5. Team 3 then, which was my teammate of xLightSky, obviously had the basic Medicham that everyone else had, the Heracross everyone else had, actually shared the Flygon alongside me, but also had an Infernape, a Kingdra and a Pelipper. Now the Pelipper had a Scarf on it, and the Infernape had the Fighting Gem, as we know already. Medicham, I don't know if I mentioned already, but does have Choice Band as well to make sure it gets that extra bit of damage. That's 50% towards physical damage. So the difference here being obviously the Pelipper, it has Captivate, Defog, Roost and Tailwind. Now I will say that Roost and Tailwind were not used. It was Captivate and Defog being the main things there, as well as the ability of Drizzle to bring in rain. And the Infernape came in with Flare Blitz, which we never used, Fake Tears, which were used, Close Combat obviously was used as well, and Mach Punch not used. His Flygon obviously coming in with the Earth Power, which we all used as well, and Kingdra having stuff like Brine and Hydro Pump being the main things we needed. So there we go, that's the entire team that we used. Now once again, this is a guide, as in a guideline. You don't have to copy this to the exact point, okay? You can have more IVs, you may even have a little bit less IVs, sometimes it may not even matter, your natures might be slightly off maybe, but you can still achieve the same sort of things. And as I said, I brought the Alpha Suicune with me. You will not need to bring an Alpha Suicune. I would honestly just highly recommend bringing another tanky but also powerful water type Pokemon with you that can learn stuff like Brine, Hydro Pump and Rain Dance, for example. I'm more than sure even in the Chinese strat they used Pokemon like Milotic as well, and Nidoking, which can work as well somehow, some way, but we didn't use that during this raid fight. So there we go, ladies and gents, I've now told you all of the mechanics of the Heatran Raid, everything it does, everything it can use against you, all the mechanics, and we've shown you the teams that we use to defeat this raid as well. I will now show you how to get to this Siddo raid, obviously, because it's at the very back of the cave, so I'll show you how to get to that raid, and then once we're there, in the raid fight, we'll try and go over some of the moves that we used and extra stuff as well. Some extra hindsight as well, if you're wondering if this can be a shiny at the end when you catch it, yes it absolutely can. If you're wondering if you can increase the IVs of the Pokemon, yes you absolutely can. Here's my Heatran with 31 across the board with these Magma Stones. Now when you beat this raid you get 30 Magma Stones given to you, and you can repeat this raid every 7 days. Now it's worth noting that if you go to the bottom right, the menu, and go to the instance info, you can see my instance info right here, and you'll see down at the bottom you'll see the Heatran 6 stars will reset in 6 days something something. It basically means 7 days from when you've done it, and it'll tell you how many times you've done it. So in 7 days I can do it again and get the Heat Rocks, or whatever they're called, the Magma Stones, sorry. I can get 30 Magma Stones again if I do it in 7 days. However, at the very bottom you can see the Heatran recapture is in 90 days. So that means every 3 months you get the opportunity to catch another Heatran, but until then you're just stuck with the one, and you can get your Magma Stones each week. And if you're wondering if you can change the nature of the Pokemon, you absolutely can. I've already changed mine to Calm, which gives it special defense and less attack. Obviously, if you go to the GTL one more time, it's a byproduct of the Glacidia flowers. So if we go ahead here and type in Nature Herb, like so, if we can spell today, Nature Herb, you can see there's loads of Nature Herbs here, and in fact I'm pretty sure Calm is one of the best ones for Heatran. But if we type in Calm Nature, and you can see that the Calm Nature Herbs are about 10k. They may shoot up, they may go down, who knows, but the Calm Nature Herbs are here, and you can just use this on the Heatran and it'll change the nature for you. They only work on legendary Pokemon and unknown Pokemon. Thank you very much to the guy in the comments earlier today that reminded me that it does work on unknown as well. And if I just read it, that would have been great. One more thing as well before we get started is, before you go into the Heatran Raid, or before you believe that you can just absolutely do it by buying Pokemon off the GTL, you need at least 4 Pokemon in your party that have your OT. Now they can have your OT star, as in like if you see OfficialDarku here but it says like OfficialDarku star, that should still count as your OT regardless when it comes to the raid fights. Not the OT decks, but the raid fights itself. Yeah, you need at least 4 Pokemon in your party with your OT. You can have another 2 Pokemon with you that are not your OT, but this is basically to combat loads of alt accounts just rerunning this kind of fight. And yes, I know it does suck that you just can't have your friends' OTs really in these sort of situations, but it is what it is. Anyways, let's get right into the action. I'll stop waffling. Oh my goodness, it's almost 17 minutes in and he hasn't even started the raid yet. It's almost like he loves giving us all of the information. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, now that we're at the top of Stark Mountain, you can see the raid fight for Heatran, and right as we're about to start this raid fight, I just want to give you the top tip that we want to try and get the ads. That's the 2 Pokemon that Heatran summons to help him. We want them as Torkoal and Magma. This is really important. If you do not get these 2, make sure to forfeit real quick with your team and keep refighting until you eventually see Torkoal and Magma for this strat to actually work. A lot of people have been using Golem, but eventually it explodes and it can summon another Torkoal or another Pokemon that can cause you a lot of problem. Magma is definitely the play. Without further ado though, here is turn 1. You can see that everybody on my team has their Medicham out, ready with their choice band items and close combat. I bring out the Sneasel to get the Thief on the Heatran to make sure we knock off the leftovers. Obviously I'm going to talk over this now and again to let you know what's going on, but other than that we're going to enjoy the music. Turn 2 then, everybody is sending out their Heracross with their black belts I believe, and we're all going to use close combat once again. We've all got guts, we're going to be burnt, we've got the belts, we're going to be capping out at 3.9 to 4% damage on each of our Heracross right here, right now. Turn 3 then is when things start getting spicy. We've got the Rotom coming out with the Infernape, the Pelipper, and my Politoed. The Rotom and the Pelipper are going to be using Defog to make sure that Heatran's evasiveness goes to -2. The Infernape is going to close combat, and my Politoed is going to use Weather Ball with the Rain to make sure that we can get it to that extra threshold that makes it raw. It is worth noting now, this is the most important tip about this raid, is that it's very RNG heavy right here, right now. It's all situational. Now the problem is, obviously, I don't know what's going to happen to you. Anything could happen to your team, anything could happen to my team. When it roars the Pokemon, it grabs a random Pokemon from your backline, throws it out, so yours are always most likely going to be different than mine. There's probably like 90 different variations that could happen here. From here on out, the best I can say is make sure that you're captivating at the right time, make sure you're keeping an eye on the percentage of the HP, make sure you keep it raining so that they can't just immediately solar power. Obviously the Kingdras are great whilst the Heatran's evasiveness is -2, you can use those Hydro Pumps to definitely get all that damage off, and around 50% HP is when he shrugs off the evasiveness anyway, and then you can start using Brine. Obviously when he switches types later on, you can use the Earth Power etc. to get that extra damage off. Don't forget, around when he gets the barrier off, you need to use a Pokemon with Fake Tears. So there you go. Like I said, this is very, very situational from this point on, but like I said, just keep the rain going, captivate going, make sure you get all that damage going as well. Do not let them get too much sun off. The best I can give you is the example of what we are doing right now. Just keep a good close eye on exactly what happens in this raid fight, and you will succeed as well. I'm sorry that I can't give you more variation than this, because like I said, when it comes to the raw technique, there's like 90 odd, probably even more than 90 different variations of what could happen. The best I can give you is exactly what we do in this raid fight without editing too much, like, you know, speeding up or anything like that. Just watch how this raid goes and make sure you follow the guideline. Again, this is not the absolute pristine, most perfect thing you've ever seen. Obviously, you can change things on your own terms. There you go, ladies and gents, this is how we beat Heatran. I will put the extra guides in the description of this video if you want to go check out them as well. The written guide by Cav, and also the Spanish guide. I accidentally called it Chinese earlier, that is my mistake. It was actually the Spanish guide, not a Chinese guide. And everything will be written in the Discord as well, so don't forget to join the Darku's Pookies Discord. We have so many guides and such helpful people in that Discord, it's unbelievable. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on the video as well. We bring many guides for PokeMMO and other games, and I'll see you on another one. See ya, and enjoy the raid!